The great hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched for miles in every direction. Lights of 1,000 colors floated in the air above the delegates. Species from across the known universe sat in their designated sections, some breathing oxygen, others swimming in tanks of liquid methane, and a few existing as pure energy contained in special chambers. Ambassador walked toward the central platform. Her footsteps echoed in the massive space. She was small compared to most beings here. Her black hair was tied back in a simple style, and she wore the formal white uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Behind her walked two aides, their faces showing the same mix of hope and fear that she felt in her heart. They had come to Earth 6 months ago. They were a warrior species with skin like gray stone and eyes that glowed red in the darkness. Their ships had appeared without warning above every major city. They had not attacked yet. Instead, they had delivered a simple message. Earth had 1 year to surrender all resources and accept slavery, or they would burn every city to ash. Earth had tried to fight. Their missiles had bounced off shields like toys thrown by children. Their armies had been scattered by weapons that turned soldiers to dust with a single beam of light. In 3 weeks of small conflicts, humanity had lost 2 million people. They had lost nothing. So Earth had turned to the Galactic Assembly for help, had traveled for 4 months through space to reach this place. She carried the hopes of 8 billion people on her shoulders. High Counselor sat on a floating throne at the center of the hall. He was a species that looked like a giant insect with 6 arms and compound eyes that saw in every direction at once. His kind had ruled the assembly for 3,000 years. They considered themselves the beings in the galaxy. Reached the platform and bowed deeply. This was the custom here. All who spoke must show respect to the council first. "You may speak," Human said. His voice was cold and carried no emotion. Lifted her head and looked around the hall. Thousands of alien eyes watched her, some with curiosity, most with boredom, a few with open disgust. "Honored members of the Galactic Assembly," began. Her voice was steady even though her hands trembled at her sides. "I come before you today to beg for your help. The Empire has threatened to destroy my world. They will kill billions of innocent people if we do not stop them." A low sound moved through the hall. It was not concern, it was amusement. Some delegates were laughing. Continued anyway. "Earth is a young world. We have only traveled among the stars for a short time. We do not have the weapons or the ships to defend ourselves against the. But we have heard of the Assembly's laws. We know that you have protected other young species from conquest before. We are asking you to protect us now." She pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Images appeared in the air above her, pictures of Earth, its blue oceans and green lands, its cities filled with light and life. Then darker images, ships hanging in the sky, cities burning, bodies lying in streets. "These are my people," said, her voice cracked slightly. "These are children who want to grow up, mothers who want to see their sons and daughters again, fathers who work every day to give their families better lives. We are not so different from any of you. We love, we dream, we hope. Please do not let them take all of this away from us." She finished speaking and waited. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then High Counselor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You come here asking for protection. Do you know what they would do if we interfered? They are a powerful empire. War with them would cost millions of lives across the galaxy." "But the law says," started. "The law protects species of value," interrupted. "Species that contribute to the galaxy, species that have shown they deserve a place among the stars. What has Earth contributed? You have been in space for less than 200 years. You have no special technology, no unique resources, no art or science that the galaxy cannot find elsewhere. Why should we sacrifice our people to save yours?" A delegate from the sector stood up. He was a tall being with blue skin and 3 eyes. "The human speaks of her people like they matter, but I have studied Earth. They are a violent species. They fight among themselves constantly. They poison their own world with their waste. Perhaps they are doing the galaxy a favor by removing them. Laughter spread through the hall, real laughter this time, cruel and cold. Felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "We are not perfect," she said. "We have made mistakes, but we are trying to be better. Every generation we learn and grow. We deserve the chance to keep growing." "Deserve?" Another delegate spoke up. This one was a creature of living crystal that sparkled with inner light. "You speak of deserving, but you have earned nothing. Your species is primitive, weak. If you cannot defend yourselves, then perhaps you were never meant to survive." More laughter, more mockery. Looked around the hall desperately. Surely someone would speak for Earth. Surely someone would show mercy. No one did. High Counselor raised one of his 6 hands for silence. "The Assembly has heard your plea, human, and we reject it. Earth is not our concern. You will return to your world and face your fate alone. Perhaps in your final days, you will find the dignity that you have failed to show here today." The words hit like physical blows. She stood frozen on the platform, unable to move. "This session is concluded," announced. "Remove the human." Guards approached. They were not rough with her, but they were not gentle either. They guided her away from the platform as the delegates began talking among themselves, already forgetting about the small woman from the small planet that would soon be destroyed. Walked in silence. Her aides followed her, their heads bowed in shame and grief. When they reached the corridor outside the great hall, one of her aides, a young man named, finally spoke. "What do we do now, Ambassador?" Stopped walking. She stood still for a long moment, staring at the floor. When she looked up, something had changed in her eyes. The sadness was still there, but it was joined by something else. Something harder. Something that burned like fire. "We go home," she said quietly. "We tell our people what happened here today, every word, every laugh, every insult." And then started walking again. Her steps were stronger now, more determined. "And then we show them what humanity does when the universe turns its back on us. We fight. We survive. And one day we will make them remember this moment. We will make them wish they had helped us when they had the chance." She did not look back at the Great Hall. She did not need to. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. The message reached Earth 3 weeks after left the Galactic Assembly. Every television screen, every radio, every device capable of receiving a signal played her words. She spoke calmly and clearly. She told humanity exactly what had happened. The laughter, the mockery, the cold rejection. She did not tell them to give up hope. She told them to get angry. And they did. Within days, the nations of Earth stopped fighting each other. Old enemies shook hands. Ancient grudges were forgotten. Every government, every military, every scientist agreed on one thing. Humanity would not die begging for mercy. Commander Ho stood in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Korea. He was 42 years old with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from a lifetime of military service. Around him sat the leaders of every major military on Earth. Americans, Russians, Chinese, Europeans, Africans, and more. They had been enemies once. Now they were brothers and sisters united by a common enemy. "They gave us 1 year," Ho said, pointing to a map on the wall. "We have 9 months left. Our weapons cannot hurt their shields. Our ships cannot match their speed. If we fight them directly, we will lose." A Russian general named nodded grimly. "Then what do you propose? We cannot surrender. Our people would never accept it." Ho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had found a small candle in total darkness. "During their attacks, we captured pieces of technology, broken ships, damaged weapons. We have teams of scientists studying every piece right now. They tell me that in 6 months, maybe less, they will understand how these things work." And then an American admiral asked, "And then we build our own." The room fell silent. Building weapons from alien technology was something from science fiction stories. It seemed impossible. But impossible was not a word humanity used anymore. Over the next 3 months, Earth went silent. All broadcasts to space stopped. All signals were blocked. They noticed, but they did not care. They assumed the humans were simply preparing to die. The Galactic Assembly noticed too. High Counselor mentioned it briefly during one meeting. The humans have gone quiet. Perhaps they have finally accepted their fate. No one disagreed with him. No one cared enough to investigate. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, something remarkable was happening. A young scientist named Bin led the team studying shield technology. She was only 28 years old, but she was the person anyone had ever met. She worked 18 hours a day, sleeping on a small cot next to her equipment. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her mind was sharper than ever. The shield works by creating a field of energy that redirects kinetic force, she explained to Ho during one of his visits. Our weapons hit the field and bounce away, but I found something interesting. The field has small gaps, tiny holes that appear and disappear millions of times per second. Can we exploit them? Ho asked. Bin smiled. We can. I am building a weapon that fires projectiles in a specific pattern. The pattern matches the gaps in the shield. The projectiles will pass through like water through a net. Similar breakthroughs happened across the planet. In Japan, engineers discovered how to build engines that bent space itself, allowing ships to move faster than light. In Germany, physicists learned how to create armor that absorbed energy instead of deflecting it. In Brazil, programmers wrote code that could hack into communication systems. Humanity was learning fast, faster than any species in galactic history had ever learned. 6 months passed. They sent a final message to Earth. Your time is almost finished. Prepare for collection. Earth did not respond. Commander Ho stood in a massive underground factory. Before him stretched row after row of ships. They were not beautiful like the alien vessels. They were ugly and rough, built with function over form. But they were deadly. How many? He asked the factory supervisor. 300 warships ready for combat. 200 more will be finished within the month. Ho walked among the ships, running his hand along their cold metal sides. Each one carried weapons that could punch through shields. Each one had engines that could outrun any alien craft. Each one was crewed by humans who had volunteered knowing they might never come home. In another part of the world, Admiral trained the pilots who would fly these ships. She was a small woman with short hair and eyes that missed nothing. Before they came, she had commanded a single aircraft carrier. Now she commanded the entire human fleet. You are not soldiers anymore, she told her pilots. You are humanity's answer to every species that ever looked down on us. When you fly into battle, you carry the weight of 8 billion souls. Do not let them down. The pilots listened in silence. They were young and old, men and women from every nation on Earth. Fear was in their eyes, but so was determination. 3 months remained before the deadline. Earth continued to prepare. In the Galactic Assembly, rumors began to spread. Traders who passed near human space reported strange readings, energy signatures that should not exist, movement in sectors that should be empty. Some delegates grew curious, but High Counselor dismissed their concerns. The humans are probably building shelters or practicing surrender ceremonies, he said with contempt. They are not a threat. They never were. They never will be. The other delegates laughed and agreed. On Earth, worked as a link between the military and civilian populations. She traveled from city to city, speaking to crowds of ordinary people. She reminded them why they were fighting. She showed them the faces of the aliens who had laughed at their suffering. She asked them to be strong. We are not fighting for revenge, she told them. We are fighting for survival. We are fighting for our children and their children. We are fighting because no one else will fight for us. The galaxy called us weak. Let us show them what weak really means. People cheered her words. Factories worked day and night. Young people enlisted by the millions. Scientists pushed themselves past exhaustion. Every human on Earth contributed something to the effort. The final month arrived. The fleet gathered at the edge of human space. 1,000 warships, each one massive and powerful. Their commanders expected an easy victory. They expected to find humans cowering in their cities, waiting to be collected as slaves. They did not expect what they found instead. When scanners swept the system, they detected something impossible: an enemy fleet. 300 human ships arranged in perfect battle formation. Ships that should not exist. Ships built with technology humans should not have. The commander, a brutal warrior named, stared at his screen in disbelief. What is this? Where did they get these vessels? No one could answer him. A message arrived from the human fleet. It was brief and cold. Leave our space. This is your only warning. Laughed. Even with their new ships, humans were outnumbered 3-1. It was still an easy victory. Destroy them all, he ordered. The fleet moved forward. On the bridge of the human flagship, Commander Ho watched them come. His face was calm. His hands were steady on the controls. All ships, he said quietly into his communicator. This is the moment we have trained for. Remember why we fight. Remember what they did to us, and show them no mercy. The human fleet surged forward to meet their enemy. The silence was over. Humanity had returned. The first battle lasted 12 hours. It should have lasted 12 minutes. Commander had expected to sweep through the human fleet like fire through dry grass. Instead, his ships were dying. Human weapons tore through his shields like they were made of paper. Human pilots flew with a reckless courage that no species in the galaxy had ever shown before. On the bridge of his flagship, watched in horror as another of his warships exploded in a ball of orange flame. How is this possible? He screamed at his officers. They are humans, primitives. They should not have weapons that can hurt us. No one had an answer. Admiral commanded the human fleet from the bridge of a ship called the Defiance. She was calm even as explosions lit up the void around her. She studied the battle display with sharp eyes, seeing patterns that others missed. Squadron 7 moved to intercept their flanking force, she ordered. Squadron 12, focus fire on their command ships. They are trying to reorganize. Her orders were followed instantly. Human pilots trusted her completely. She had trained them well. The battle turned slowly in humanity's favor. The still outnumbered them, but numbers meant nothing when your weapons could not hurt your enemy. Human ships dodged and weaved through fire, their new engines giving them speed and agility that alien pilots could not match. By the 6th hour had lost 200 ships. The humans had lost 50. By the 10th hour, the fleet was broken. Scattered groups of ships fled in every direction, running for the safety of their home space. Its flagship was crippled, drifting without power, surrounded by human vessels. Sent a message to the defeated commander. Surrender your ship. Tell your empire what happened here today. Tell them that Earth is not the easy prey they expected. Did not respond. Instead, he activated his ship's self-destruct system, choosing death over the shame of capture. His ship exploded in a flash of white light. It was the last death of the battle. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Traders carried the story from station to station. Diplomats whispered it in meeting halls. Within days, every species in the known universe had heard what happened. The primitives had won. The weak humans had destroyed an invasion fleet. High Counselor received the news during a council meeting. His compound eyes blinked rapidly as he read the report. For the first time in centuries, he felt something like fear. This changes nothing, he announced to the assembly, trying to keep his voice steady. They underestimated the humans. They sent a small force. When they return with their full military power, Earth will fall. But the delegates were not convinced. They had seen what human determination could do. They began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. After months of fear and preparation, they had won their first victory. Strangers hugged each other. Old enemies cried together. For one brief moment, humanity was truly united. But Commander Ho did not celebrate. He knew that this was only the beginning. "The will come back," he told his commanders in a meeting 3 days after the battle. "Next time they will bring everything they have. We cannot defend Earth forever. We need to take the fight to them." Admiral agreed. "Our pilots are ready. Our ships are strong. If we strike their supply lines now, we can cripple their ability to wage war. We can make them afraid to attack us again." The plan was bold, risky, some called it madness. But humanity had no other choice. Over the next 6 months, human fleets launched raids deep into territory. They attacked supply stations. They destroyed fuel depots. They ambushed patrol ships and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They tried to respond, but they could not adapt. Their tactics were built on centuries of easy victories against weaker species. They did not know how to fight an enemy that refused to stand still, an enemy that attacked from shadows and disappeared like ghosts. Captain Minyu led one of the most successful raiding groups. He was a young officer with a talent for finding weak points in enemy defenses. His squadron destroyed 17 supply stations in 3 months, earning him the nickname Ghost of the Void among commanders. "They cannot catch what they cannot see," he told his crew after another successful raid. "And by the time they see us, we are already gone." The Empire began to feel real fear. Resources that should have gone to their invasion of Earth now went to protecting their own territory. Soldiers who should have been conquering humans were now hunting them through their own space. The Galactic Assembly watched these developments with growing concern. Delegates who had laughed at Plea now spoke in worried whispers. Some even suggested that the Assembly should try to make peace with Earth before humans turned their attention to other targets. Rejected these suggestions harshly. "We will not negotiate with primitives, though we'll crush them eventually. We need only wait." But waiting became harder as human victories continued. In the 9th month after the first battle, Admiral led a daring assault on a major military base. The base protected a hyperspace corridor that connected territory to the rest of the galaxy. Without it, ships would take months instead of days to reach distant systems. The battle was fierce. Human ships fought against fixed defenses and hundreds of enemy vessels. Losses on both sides were heavy. For a moment, it seemed like they might win. Then Admiral made a decision that would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. "All ships focus everything on the corridor generator," she ordered. "Ignore the enemy fleet. Ram the generator if you have to. That station must be destroyed." Her captains obeyed without question. Human ships dove toward the massive structure that kept the corridor open. Defenders tried to stop them, but they were too slow. The first human ship reached the generator and fired every weapon it had. Then the second. Then the third. The structure began to break apart, explosions racing along its surface. When the generator finally died, the hyperspace corridor collapsed. The shockwave destroyed a dozen ships from both sides, but when the debris cleared, the humans had won. They were now cut off from half of their empire. On Earth, people celebrated again. This time, the celebrations felt different. People were beginning to believe that victory was possible, that humanity might actually survive. Ambassador watched the celebrations from her office window. She did not smile. She was thinking about the aliens who had mocked her in the assembly hall, thinking about the cold words of High Counselor. She wondered if they were celebrating too. She doubted it. General Sung arrived at her door. He was a large man with kind eyes and a voice like thunder. He would lead the final assault on Prime when the time came. "We are almost ready," he told her. 6 more months of preparation, and we will have enough ships to strike at there. Nodded slowly, and then we end this war, on our terms. She turned away from the window and faced him. Make sure they remember, she said quietly. Make sure the whole galaxy remembers what happens when you ignore a plea for help, when you laugh at people who are dying. Sung placed a hand on her shoulder. They will remember, he promised. For 1,000 years they will remember. The final phase of humanity's war was about to begin. And the galaxy was not ready. The fleet that gathered above Earth was the largest humanity had ever assembled. 500 warships hung in the darkness of space like a swarm of angry insects. Each one was built for war. Each one carried crews who had trained for this moment their entire lives. General Sung stood on the bridge of the flagship, a massive vessel named Retribution. He looked out at the fleet through the observation windows and felt a strange mix of pride and sorrow. Pride for what humanity had accomplished, sorrow for the lives that would be lost in the battle ahead. All ships report ready, his second-in-command announced. The fleet is prepared to jump to prime on your order. Sung nodded slowly. He had spent months planning this assault. He knew every strength and weakness of the defenses. He knew exactly how many ships would need to sacrifice themselves to breach those defenses. He knew that some of the men and women in this fleet would not return home. But he also knew that this was the only way to end the war. Send a message to the Emperor, Sung ordered. Tell him that the human fleet approaches his world. Tell him that we offer him one chance to surrender. If he refuses, we will show no mercy. The message was sent. The response came 30 minutes later. Humans will never set foot on Prime. Your ships will burn in our sky. Your people will be erased from history. Sung read the message and smiled grimly. Then they have made their choice. All ships jump to Prime, battle stations. The fleet vanished from Earth orbit in a flash of light. They emerged in space to find exactly what Sung had expected. The enemy had gathered every ship they had left to defend there. 300 vessels surrounded the planet like a shell of metal and weapons. Fixed defense platforms dotted the orbital space, each one capable of destroying a dozen ships. It looked impossible to break through. But humanity had learned that impossible was just a word. Admiral commanded the first wave of attack. Her squadron dove toward the enemy defenses at maximum speed, drawing fire from the platforms and enemy ships. They took heavy losses, but they created a gap in the defensive line. Through that gap came the second wave. 50 ships carrying specialized weapons designed to take down the orbital platforms. Captain Minyu led this group, his ghost of the void reputation giving his crew confidence even as explosions surrounded them. Target the platform power cores, Minyu ordered. One shot, one kill, no wasted ammunition. His pilots obeyed. Platform after platform went dark, their weapons falling silent. The defensive shell around Prime began to crack. They fought back with desperate fury. Their ships threw themselves at the human fleet in waves, sacrificing themselves to slow the advance. For every human ship destroyed, 2 ships died, but they had nothing else to give. By the 3rd hour of battle, the orbital defenses were in ruins. Human ships now surrounded the planet, their weapons aimed at the cities below. General Sung sent another message to the Emperor. Your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. This is your last chance. Surrender now, or we will reduce your world to ash. The Emperor's response was silence. Sung waited 1 hour, then another, still no response. Very well, he said quietly. Begin orbital bombardment, military targets only. We are not monsters. Human ships opened fire. Beams of light streaked down toward the planet's surface. Military bases vanished in clouds of fire. Weapons factories became craters. Communication centers went silent forever. They watched their military infrastructure disappear in real time. Soldiers who had never known defeat saw their empire crumble before their eyes. Citizens who had been told that humans were weak primitives now cowered in shelters as alien ships ruled their sky. After 6 hours of bombardment, the Emperor finally sent a message. "We surrender. Stop the attack. We will accept your terms." Sung ordered an immediate ceasefire. The guns fell silent. The fires on the planet's surface continued to burn, but no new ones started. "Send landing parties," Sung commanded. "Secure the government buildings. Bring me the Emperor." Human soldiers descended to Prime Inn. They moved through streets filled with terrified aliens who could not believe what was happening. For centuries, they had conquered other species. Now they were being conquered themselves. The Emperor was found in his palace, surrounded by guards who had already dropped their weapons. He was an old with gray skin cracked by age and eyes that had lost their red glow. He looked at the human soldiers like they were ghosts from a nightmare. "How?" he asked as they placed restraints on his arms. "How did you do this? You were nothing, a weak species on a weak world. How did you destroy everything we built?" A young human sergeant answered him. Her name was Young, and she had lost her entire family in the first attacks on Earth. "You taught us," she said simply. "You showed us that the universe does not care about the weak, so we stopped being weak. We became something you never expected, something the entire galaxy never expected." The Emperor was taken to the human flagship in chains. For the first time in history, their leader was a prisoner of another species. News of the surrender spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species, every world, every station heard the same incredible story. The humans had done what no one believed possible. They had brought the Empire to its knees. In the Galactic Assembly, delegates sat in stunned silence. High Counselor had disappeared from his chamber. Some said he was hiding. Others said he had fled to a distant system where humans would never find him. Ambassador received the news on Earth. She sat in her office, reading the reports from Prime. Tears ran down her face, but she was not crying from sadness. She was crying from relief. It was over. The war was over. Humanity had won. But winning the war was only the first step. Now humanity needed to secure its place in the galaxy forever. They needed to make sure that no species would ever threaten Earth again. Dried her tears and called a meeting of Earth's leaders. "We need to send a delegation to the Galactic Assembly," she told them. "We need to show them that humanity is no longer asking for help. We are demanding respect." The leaders agreed. Preparations began immediately. In 2 weeks, a human fleet would arrive at the Assembly headquarters. But this time, they would not come as beggars. They would come as conquerors. And this time, no one would laugh. On Prime, the occupation continued. Human soldiers patrolled the streets. Human engineers began dismantling weapons factories. Human doctors treated wounded civilians, even the aliens who had once wanted to enslave them. General Sung walked through the ruined capital city with Captain Minyu at his side. They passed broken buildings and shattered statues of warriors. "We could have destroyed this entire planet," Minyu said quietly. "Some people think we should have." Sung shook his head. "Then we would be no better than them. We fought to survive, not to commit genocide. Let them live. Let them rebuild. Let them remember forever what happens when you underestimate humanity." Minyu nodded slowly. "The galaxy will never forget this day." "No," Sung agreed, "they will not." Above them, human ships continued to orbit the conquered world. The flag of Earth flew from every government building. The war was over. But humanity's story was just beginning. The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly looked exactly as remembered it. The same lights floated above. The same delegates sat in their designated sections. The same cold silence filled the air when she walked toward the central platform. But everything else had changed. 3 years ago, she had walked this path alone, a desperate ambassador from a desperate world, begging for help that would never come. The delegates had laughed at her. They had called her species primitive and worthless. They had sent her home to die. Now she walked with an army at her back. 50 human soldiers in black combat armor followed her into the hall. Behind them came Admiral General Sung, Captain Minyu, and a dozen other heroes of the war. Above the assembly station, 100 human warships waited in silent formation. No one was laughing now. Reached the central platform and looked around the hall. The same delegates who had mocked her 3 years ago now stared at her with fear in their eyes. Some had not even shown up today. Their seats were empty, their species too afraid to face humanity's judgment. High Counselor was not on his floating throne. A new leader sat there instead, a female named who had spoken against the war from the beginning. She was one of the few aliens who had shown humanity any kindness. Ambassador said, her voice careful and respectful, "The Galactic Assembly welcomes you. We are honored by your presence." Did not bow. She stood tall and straight, her eyes cold. "I did not come here for honors," she said. Her voice carried through the silent hall. "I came here to remind you of something. 3 years ago I stood in this exact spot. I begged for your help. I showed you pictures of my people dying. I asked you to save us from extinction." She paused, letting the memory sink in. "Do you remember what you said? You called us primitive, weak. You said we were not worth protecting. You laughed while my world burned." The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked away. Others pretended to study their screens. No one could meet the eyes. "We did not die," continued. "We survived. We fought back. We defeated the Empire alone without any help from you. And now we stand here not as beggars but as one of the most powerful species in the galaxy." She let those words hang in the air for a long moment. "You made a mistake, all of you. You looked at humanity and saw nothing but a small, young species that could be ignored. You did not see our determination, our ability to adapt, our refusal to accept defeat. You did not understand that humans do not give up, ever." A delegate from the sector stood up nervously. It was the same blue-skinned alien who had called humanity violent 3 years ago. "Ambassador, we deeply regret what happened. We were wrong about your species. We should have helped you when you asked." "Yes," said coldly, "you should have, but you did not, and now you must live with the consequences of that choice." Fear spread through the hall like a disease. Delegates whispered to each other. Some began transmitting urgent messages to they all expected the same thing: revenge, war, destruction. But surprised them. "We did not come here to punish you," she said. "We did not come here to conquer you or threaten you or make you suffer as we suffered. That would make us no better than the species who abandoned us." She took a deep breath before continuing. "We came here to offer you something that you never offered us, a choice. You can accept humanity as an equal member of this assembly, with full rights and full representation. You can work with us to build a better galaxy, one where no species is abandoned to face extinction alone. Or you can refuse and we will leave. We will build our own alliance with species who share our values. We will protect the weak ones you ignore. We will become everything you should have been." The hall was completely silent. No one moved, no one spoke. Counselor finally broke the silence. "The assembly needs time to discuss your proposal. There are many voices here with many opinions." "I understand," said, "but I want to be clear about one thing. This is not a negotiation. These are our terms, accept them or reject them. There is no middle ground." Nodded slowly. "We will give you our answer within 1 day." Turned and walked away from the platform. Her soldiers and officers followed her. The delegates watched them leave, still too shocked to speak. Outside the great hall, General Sung walked beside. "Do you think they will accept?" "They have no choice," replied. "They know what we can do. They know that rejecting us would be the biggest mistake in galactic history. Fear will make them agree. And after they agree, Do we forgive them? Stopped walking. She looked out a window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home, a world that had nearly been destroyed by alien cruelty and alien indifference. Forgiveness takes time, she said softly, but we must try. Holding on to anger forever will only poison us. We must be better than they were. We must show the galaxy what true strength looks like. The next day, the Galactic Assembly announced its decision. Humanity was accepted as a full member with all rights and privileges. A permanent seat on the High Council was created for a human representative. New laws were passed protecting young species from invasion and conquest. And at the center of it all stood Ambassador. The woman who had been laughed at was now one of the most respected voices in the galaxy. The species that had been called primitive now shaped the future of countless worlds. Years passed, decades, centuries. Humanity spread across the stars. They built colonies on distant worlds. They formed alliances with dozens of species. They became known as protectors of the weak, champions of the forgotten, defenders of those who had no one else to defend them. Whenever a young species faced extinction, humanity was there to help. Whenever a powerful empire threatened a weaker neighbor, human ships arrived to keep the peace. Whenever someone asked why humans cared so much about protecting others, the answer was always the same. Because we remember what it felt like to be alone. We remember what it felt like to beg for help and receive only laughter. We will never let another species feel that way if we can prevent it. The story of Earth's plea and humanity's response became legend. It was taught in schools across the galaxy. It was the subject of songs and stories and historical studies. Every child, human and alien alike, learned the lesson it contained. Never mock the desperate. Never ignore the weak. Never assume that a species is worthless just because it is young or small or different. Because you never know what they might become. On the anniversary of the first battle against the humans across the galaxy held a moment of silence. They remembered those who had died. They honored those who had fought. And they renewed their promise to protect others as they had not been protected. Admiral, now old and gray, spoke at the ceremony on Earth. Her voice was still strong even after all these years. "We were mocked," she said to the crowd that had gathered. "We were abandoned. We were told that we did not matter, and we proved them wrong, not through cruelty, not through revenge, but through courage, determination, and a refusal to become the monsters they expected us to be." She paused, looking out at the faces of humanity's children and, "Remember this always. Our greatest victory was not defeating the. Our greatest victory was becoming a species that the galaxy could trust, a species that turned mockery into mercy, a species that responded to cruelty with compassion." The crowd cheered. Fireworks lit up the sky, and somewhere in the heavens among the countless stars, humanity continued its journey. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something far more powerful. As a species that had learned, through suffering and sacrifice, what it truly meant to be strong.